What's the most embarrassing thing you've ever done? And I probably shouldn't be saying this. My wife's on the live, but I'm gonna have to say it because y'all asked it.
On the track.
Welcome to another episode of the Common Podcast, where we speak upon common sense and realize it really isn't that common. Guys, welcome back to another live Q&A. We're live actually right now on Instagram. So for the people that are listening right now, if you want to engage in these, I'm going to be going live on Instagram. The handle is The Real Common Podcast. And I'm also going to be going live on Twitch. That's the best place to go is Twitch because you're able to engage a lot better on there. Also, for the people looking at the screen, y'all can check out the YouTube channel. It has 249 subscribers. I want to hit 300 by, I want to say, in 2 months' time. So that's not going to happen unless everybody watching this podcast right now just takes the time right now just to hit subscribe. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple Music, or any other platform, make sure you follow and then hit the 5-star rating so you can help out the algorithm push the podcast. But other than that, if y'all aren't familiar with it, this is the second time we're doing this. We're doing a live Q&A. I send out an anonymous questionnaire. Y'all ask questions, and I'm going to answer them live, and y'all are going to be able to engage in the podcast live. So people on Twitch are going to be able to ask more questions, and on Instagram are also going to be able to ask more questions and then kind of give reflective feedback on the questions that are asked. So we've got quite a few questions, so we're going to jump right into it. First question is, what's the most important thing you've learned in your life? What was life before and after you learned it? So this was actually a very interesting question because I always talk about, and I've mentioned it plenty of times on the podcast, on March 18, 2015, I decided to change my life. I had been overweight my whole entire life and pretty much been a woed person. I've been a very victimized person. I always complained about different things, and I always complained about how life was unfair and how I wasn't dealt the best hand in life and stuff like that. I started to just stack up excuses on top of excuses, and nothing ever really got done. Nothing I really set out to do really got done. So I think the biggest thing on March 18, 2015 is I wrote on the whiteboard all the goals that I had, and I told myself that the only person that was ever going to be able to accomplish these goals was me. But it was also the same person that can mess it all up. And so with that, basically what I learned, and I continue to learn, was that I have to learn that regardless of whatever else happens in my life, that I have control over the outcome. At least what I can control. And until I do that, I can't complain about anything else. I think overcoming the victimhood and growing from that was probably the best thing that I ever learned back then. And I've carried it on and learned more on top of that. Actually, there's this, I've been reading a lot of Stoic literature, and one of the Stoics had put, one of the sayings that he had was amor fati. And it basically means to love fate, regardless if it's evil or bad. Evil or good. Maybe somebody cheated on you. Maybe somebody passed away, and you just feel like, why is this happening to me? And amor fati teaches you to love that, to take from that experience what you can, not build resentment. Because when you build resentment, all you do is fall into victimhood, and you gain nothing from it. So that's probably one of the biggest things that I've learned is don't be a victim to victimhood. Learn to own your adversities and grow from those things. So that's probably the biggest thing that I've learned. And before learning that, because that's part of the question, I was pretty much not accomplishing any goals. I felt very depressed. I felt very unaccomplished. I felt like I had no purpose in this world. And then afterwards, I started to gain a lot of confidence and a lot of momentum on, kind of conquering my goals and learning new things about myself and other people. And it wasn't until then that I started to grow. So that's probably the biggest thing that I've ever learned. Next question is, what is something people seem to misunderstand about you? You missed the question, Freddie, but it's all right. We have so many other questions. So, what's something people seem to misunderstand about you? So, I think personally, people really think that I'm a very self-centered person, especially the people that know me in person. And I don't consider myself to be extremely self-centered. I know I may have some. I'm very goal-centric, is what I am. So when I set out to do a goal, I really cut out everything and anyone in order to accomplish that goal, and that makes me seem very heartless, very, very self-centered. And I feel like people think that I don't care about others, that maybe I'm a little bit narcissistic and whatnot. But at the end of the day, all my goals, when I sit down and I think about my goals, all my goals are to inspire other people. And that's all I really set out to do. Whether it's people here on the podcast, here on the Instagram, or whatever I do, it's always to inspire other people. I don't care what it is that I do in life, no matter the career, the path that I take. My goal in life is to inspire others. And as long as I'm doing that, I feel fulfilled, honestly. Like that I was supposed to have a podcast with somebody yesterday, last week. And this person was going through something, and I decided to, cut off, I was like, you know what? Hold on one sec. Are we live? Okay, we're still live. And this person was going through something and decided that they weren't in the right mind to record a podcast. I said, you know what? Scratch the podcast. Let's have a talk, because everything that I do in life is all about helping others. And I care about helping people way more than I care about all this other stuff. More than I care about money, more than I care about materialistic things. All I want to do is help people. So I think that people get that confused about me, and they think that I'm a very selfish person. I'm not. I truly think that I'm not, but I guess people have their opinions. Personality or looks? Now, this is, ideally, obviously the person's talking about choosing a significant other, right? So obviously you would want both, right? You would want somebody you're attracted to and somebody that has a genuine personality. At the end of the day, obviously, I think what everybody's going to choose is personality. I got blessed with both, but I feel like if I had to choose from one or the other, if I had to choose from somebody who I was attracted to and personality, I would go with personality, because the thing about looks is that that's going to fade away regardless. When we get old, we're not going to look the way we look right now. That pretty girl that you admire is going to eventually get overweight, wrinkly, and look ugly. The personality is going to stay there. So I would ask this: if you want a family, who would you want to raise your kids? And that's exactly what I thought about when I got with my wife and assessed my situation. Okay, like I said, I got blessed with both. My wife is beautiful and great personality. So, but if I had to choose between the two, it would be personality. I think that's an obvious one. Maybe not. Maybe some people would choose the latter, but. Do people change, and should actions from the past affect future relationships? I think this is, so obviously this person's talking about like relationships. So like, I think the most extreme thing, looks are hooked, but the personality will fade quickly. They have it ugly. Yeah, I agree with that. So, I think the most extreme version of an example of this, and I think that's what this person is referring to. Like, let's say somebody cheats, right? And we always hear that saying, once a cheater, always a cheater. And can they change? I think the obvious question is yes. I think that people can change, right? I just think it's extremely hard. I have this thing about temperaments and personalities that I think people don't take into consideration. I think that temperamentally we're born with discipline. I know that sounds kind of hard, but I feel like some people struggle with certain temptations more than others. Some people might be a glutton, and somebody else might be very disciplined in eating. Some people might be very tempted in lust, and some people may not be as tempted. But at the end of the day, I feel like people can change. It just needs to be a very deliberate effort. Like, if you know that you're going to fall in temptation and you know you're going to be doing this and that, just try to stay away from those things. Set barriers for yourself. Keep yourself focused on things that you want to accomplish rather than the latter, right? But I think people can change. I just think that it's extremely hard, and I don't think everybody does it. So that's what I think about that. Next question is, have you and your wife thought about what baby names have you and your wife thought of? So my wife hates every single name that I've thought of. Like every single name. Besides our boy, the boy that we're about to have is going to take my name. He's going to be Rogelio Quintero III. But besides that, all the other names she completely hates. And everybody else, when I tell them names, they just like, no. But the thing is, I want a name, Matt Fraser. The thing is, I want a name for a child that's going to stand out, right? And my wife tells me, oh, he's going to get picked on. It's like, I don't care. Like, they're going to remember him, right? Like, in the beginning of this podcast, I talked about Amor Fati. I was like, what if we named our son Amor Fati? And she's like, yeah, you're crazy. Like, get out of here, right? I'm always thinking about super spontaneous names, and everybody calls me silly. So one of like the boy names that I haven't figured out the actual name, but I want a Sir in front of the name. So it's like Sir Rogelio, for an example, right? But my wife thinks I'm crazy. But for a girl, and y'all better not steal our girl name, but for girl, we're thinking Haley or another one. I totally forgot the other one. My wife knows the other one. Bartholomew. What does that mean, Juan? Okay, so next question is going to be, how did you meet your wife? So this one's interesting. I think this was asked twice. So people want to know how I met my wife. So Mallory. So my wife's in the live, and she says Mallory, like Mallory O'Brien. So Haley or Mallory. So those are the two names that we're thinking about for a girl. How did I meet my wife? So crazy story. I actually met my wife when we were kids, like super duper young. Her mom used to take care of us. But here's the thing. I never really knew that she actually existed. I know that sounds weird, but she was so young and I would like hang out with her brothers, that I really didn't connect with her. And after, we were kids, we became teenagers, and I completely separated from that group of people, like her family. And I totally forgot she existed until her Sweet 16 is when I got invited to her Sweet 16. And I found out like, oh, I knew this person when she was a kid. How we actually started to get in contact was she worked for me I was a manager at a fast food restaurant, and she worked for me. She was one of my assistants under me, and that's kind of how we started talking. So how we met as kids, but not really. And then we started really talking when we were coworkers, basically. So that's how we met. What are red flags for a woman? Red flags. Guys, if she has a lot of guy friends, cut her loose. She can't have too many guy friends, regardless of what they say. If a girl has guy friends, let me tell you something. Let me tell you a little secret. All of those guys will take an opportunity if there is one. That's all I'm going to say. They're just waiting for the opportunity. So if a girl has a bunch of guy friends, she either has, or there is a possibility that there might be some type of intimacy. That's all I'm saying. They're waiting on the fly. Yes, sir, Freddie. What about gay friends? Doesn't matter. Listen, everybody has sexual needs. I don't care if a guy is gay. A guy is a guy at the end of the day, and he will use something. He'll use a hole if he needs to. That's all I'm saying. So I don't care if he's gay, whatever. If a girl has way too many guy friends, cut her loose. What's your favorite book and why? I've mentioned this book plenty of times on the podcast, but 12 Rules of Life by Jordan Peterson. It's either that or the Bible, because I believe that the Bible isn't just a book, it's a library of books. And I feel like every book has been derived off of the Bible. So if I was going that direction, I would say the Bible. But I think realistically speaking, I would say 12 Rules of Life for Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson, in that book, the reason why it was such a great book for me. Freddie, you've been reading it. Nice. I actually gave Freddie that book, so Freddie's going to be reading it, and he's going to tell me what he thinks about it. So the interesting about that book is that the philosophy behind the book I've always believed in, but I've never been able to put into words. Have you ever been in a situation where you think something, but you just can't really explain it? That book was exactly that. I don't know how to put it into words, but as I was reading, I felt like everything started to click correctly, and basically all my ideas started to clear, and everything just became clear to me about like, man, yes, this is how I felt my whole entire life. This is exactly what it is. And that's why it's my favorite book. I listened on audiobook, his second book. I didn't really enjoy it listening to it. I felt like my mind wandered too much. So I'm going to have to buy that book and read it. But it has to be that one, 12 Rules of Life by Jordan Peterson. What's the most embarrassing thing you've ever done? That's a tough one, because if it was like the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to me, I feel like that's easy. Like I have a story for that. But the most embarrassing thing I've ever done, and I probably shouldn't be saying this, my wife's on the live, but I'm going to have to say it because y'all asked it. By the way, if y'all are interested in having my wife on a live Q&A, let me know. I'll definitely try to convince her to set that up. She might not want to be on the camera, but she might be like on the side of the camera and answer some questions. But probably the most embarrassing thing, the most embarrassing thing is probably being caught at a public park with doing, crazy stuff. The cops pulled up on us and stuff like that. So this was in my past, in my younger days. That's probably, when it happened, I felt like this overwhelming sense of just embarrassment and kind of guilt and disappointment in myself. That's probably the biggest thing. Your wife is in here. Freddie. It happened twice, Freddie. So I didn't learn the first time. Have you ever watched Harry Potter? No. That might surprise some of y'all, but I've never watched Harry Potter at all. Never one movie. I know it's like a big old what is it? They're not called sequence, is it? Twice. Yeah, I know there's like a plethora of movies. Sequels, there you go. I know Harry Potter has sequels, but I've never seen any Harry Potter. So I might have to go check them out just because they're so iconic to people and they're so inspiring to people. So I might have to check that out. My favorite sport. Now, I think my favorite sport would have to be mixed martial arts. More specifically, would have to be UFC. And I think that's the case because, well, let me rewind. Let me backtrack a little bit. I used to be really into football. But the thing is, I kind of disconnected from professional sports for one reason. I would get way too emotionally invested in my team, right? So my team is the Cowboys. So everybody around me knew that I liked the Cowboys. As soon as they lost, they would grill me on it. And I'm like, oh, man. And it would literally ruin my whole entire week because my team lost. And I found out that was just not healthy for me. And regardless if the Cowboys won or lost, amor fati. Don't worry about it. You can't control those things. Love your fate. Cowboys lost. Forget about it. Move on to the next day. I couldn't do that. But based off of that, I had to learn to not really get too connected with sports. So, but I love to watch. I'm guilty of watching UFC. I love it. Even though sometimes it hurts me when I see those guys get knocked out or snapping their bones and stuff like that. But I think that mixed martial arts is a true sport. It's just combat is what it is. So that's probably my favorite sport. And I think that might be all the questions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah. I think that's all the questions, guys. Y'all have any other questions before I close it out? These Q&As are going to be very, very quick. Remember, I'm going to start uploading twice a week, so these are going to be a little bit more nonchalant, not structured. Freddie's going to be on the podcast tomorrow. We're going to be talking about men's mental health, so shout out to Freddie in the live. That's going to be up on Friday, so all the listeners, go check that out on Friday. Any more questions in the chat before I close it out? All right, go ahead, Freddie. Breakfast or dinner? Definitely dinner. The more healthy one would probably be breakfast, right? Because you're starting your day. But I don't know. I enjoy eating at the evening. And I've had a history of intermittent fasting, and I've been able to do every single day 16-hour fasts, and that hasn't been a problem. So I know there's a lot of talk about, like, there was recent studies about fasting intermittently doesn't have a exponentially more of a benefit than just caloric deficit. But the thing is, for me, and this is scientifically proven, is that the moment that you start eating, the moment you put something in your mouth, there's neurons activated in your brain that wants you to continue eating until you're full, especially if you train it that way. So for me, fasting helped me because if I wanted to be in a caloric deficit, I would go majority of the day not eating, because the moment that I started eating, I would just want to snack or get full, and that will cause me to overeat essentially. And so I guess I just got really used to dinner. So I would choose dinner. What made you want to start a podcast? So that comes from Lynn Lee. Lynn Lee's the homegirl. I like to say that almost if you talk to me long enough, the conversations I have with people are basically podcasts. Like, if you know me personally, I love to talk very deep, very introspect, and I just love to pick people's brain. And I felt that me personally, I love to listen to podcasts for that reason. I love the whole dynamic of having a conversation and learning different perspectives. So because I love listening to podcasts so much, I thought, and I love content creating too. It's like, you know what? Let me start my own podcast. What can I lose from starting a podcast? I have nothing but to gain. I've met some very good, interesting people off of podcasting. I met a judge last month, right? I've had several pastors. I've had different people, that just normal people that are willing to give me their perspective on life. And starting a podcast was a no-brainer for me because I love to have interesting conversations with people and learn. I believe that everybody has something to offer. I don't care if you don't have any credentials or accolades that show that. To me, it doesn't matter. I think that everybody has something to pass on. Like, I feel like most conversations, like 80%, maybe even 90% is all BS. Like, you can probably discard everything else. But that 10%, if you get that 10% of the conversation and it actually holds value, that's 10% more than what you already have. I know there was a, oh man, he's an entrepreneur. Tai Lopez. Tai Lopez had this very interesting perspective on this, where he says that if you're not the smartest, if you're not the most competent person in the room, shut up, because you're losing the opportunity to gain units of knowledge. If you spent the whole time talking in that room where other people were more competent than you, then you just wasted a great opportunity to grow. right? Wisdom is found in things that you do not know, not in things that you know. If you learn things that you already know, you're just affirming what you already know. But if you stay quiet and you stay disciplined enough to listen to people and be willing to learn things that you're not familiar with, which is a hard thing to do, then you gain knowledge. That's what I think. Hey, Mikey with the bits. All right, guys, listen, I'm going to go ahead and wrap that up. We've been doing the podcast for about 25 minutes. Thank you, everybody that tuned in to the live on Twitch, on Instagram, and obviously y'all on the podcast. If you're listening on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, anywhere else that you can find podcasts, if you could do me a favor, follow the podcast if you're not already. Share with a friend if you enjoyed it, because they can very much enjoy it just like you just did. So we're going to be doing this every Wednesdays. So go follow the podcast on Instagram, being The Real Common Podcast, where you can ask questions for the next Q&A. It's going to be every Monday we're going to be recording. Every Wednesday we're going to be uploading. Every Friday we're going to do our regular interviewed podcast. So if you want to pitch an idea or a topic for that, you can also do it on Instagram. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I appreciate every single one of y'all. You have no idea. And until the next episode, we'll catch y'all later. Thank you. On the track.